Knicks over-unders, Al. Caesar Sportsbook has come out with their win projections for the Knicks. Not every team has their win projections. I believe they didn't make one for Miami yet, and I don't believe they made one for Philly yet, obviously, because those teams are kind of in flux. But for the Knicks, they had it at 45.5 wins. So the question for you, the question for people at home watching, over or under, where are you going with it?
45.5. I'm going to go over 45.5. Yeah.
I'm jumping out the window preseason.
Well, man, I'm looking at the East.
Okay.
Right? If you're going to ask how I'm figuring this all out, why am I going 45.5? Look, we were on a 50-game win pace last season prior to getting Josh Hart after the 9-man rotation change. So I'm going to take that into account, saying, okay, maybe we can kind of do that. You add Donte DiVincenzo to the mix. All right. The nucleus is staying the same. So we have some continuity here. So there shouldn't be that much difference coming into this season with the roster that we have. Right. And then we're going to circle around. Let's look at just the division to start off. Okay. We're going to start off with the division. So we're going to talk about Philly. We're talking about Toronto, Boston, and Brooklyn. I don't see Brooklyn getting that much better. I see the Knicks being better there. You're going to talk to me about Philly, James Harden, that situation, drama. You know how drama plays into these things. We don't know, man. I don't know. You can't really sell me on a Maxey and Embiid ticket saying, okay, now that's better than the Knicks. If anything, that's comparable to the Knicks. So I'm like, all right, it should be even there. Boston. Funny enough, I was playing with a Celtic fan on the links, and he was like, oh, I'm happy that we don't have Marcus Smart. And I was like, word? You're happy you don't have the heart and soul of your team?
Yeah.
I don't believe the Celtics are going to be that much better without having somebody who actually has the cojones to go out there and take the tough shots when Tatum and Brown could sometimes fade away into the game. So I'm confident against that. And we're with the team that we had last season, we went 3-1. Once again, they lost. You're talking about losing Grant Williams and Marcus Smart. That defense to me loses a little bit of that edge. So I think we could compete with them. Toronto was a mess last season. I think they're a mess this season. They don't really have everything together. And then you look at the rest of the East. Miami, I think they could be competitive. Cleveland, marginal improvements, not really scaring me from like a Knicks standpoint. The Bucks are really the only team to me that is still that team that you got to be on the lookout for. They didn't really lose anybody significant. They were still able to retain Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton. Chicago, still a mess to me.
Yeah.
Atlanta, not really factoring in. Maybe you think about Indy taking a step forward, but their step forward is not enough to me to what the Knicks could do. So I'm thinking the Knicks are going to get over 45 wins, man. They're going to probably get 46 and more.
I like that. I'm going to go the same. I'm going over. Out the window.
So you're jumping out the window with me. You think I'm jumping over? You said no, Al. I'm going to jump with you.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the same. Now, obviously, injuries, first and foremost, durability has to be at the utmost importance, right? Any injuries, we can't afford an injury to Brunson. Damn sure can't afford an injury to Julius. If either of those happen for significant lengths of time, they're not going to make it.
Yep.
Especially with the lack of depth at the 4 spot. Can't afford a key injury there. So injury is going to have to be the key there. I'm going for this reason. Another year of chemistry, another year together. You hope that the Brunson-Julius tandem can take another step because it had potential, especially in pick and roll efficiency. I would like to see them go to that a little bit more and grow together. We'll see how RJ fits as that third cog again in 2 years together with that trio. It's going to be a very interesting litmus test for them just to see going forward, do they have potential to grow, or is this thing as clunky as it looked at certain points in the regular season? But I'm going to go with another year of experience and chemistry with that big three. Then I'm looking at the bench. The DiVincenzo pickup, I think, is going to lift this bench up tremendously, both offensively and defensively. I'm very interested to see how him quickly and Hart get after it. they're going to be all after it on the defensive end. Their off-ball defense, their off-ball communication, their rotations, their switches, what have you. I think they're going to be in lockstep with each other. DiVincenzo being a ball hawk, his steal percentage being at one of the best in the league. Josh Hart as well at being one of the best in the league. Their ability to rebound, getting out there and getting those steals is going to lead to easy transition hoops, which DiVincenzo and Hart are good at. You get quickly out there with that tandem. I think that's going to work wonders. Hartenstein as well, another year with that group. Him coming on hot from the seemed like the second half of last season into the playoffs. So I think that group gets elevated a lot because they were 25th in the league in bench points last year, bench points per game, 23rd in bench 3-point percentage. I think DiVincenzo is going to help them out tremendously in that regard. So I think the bench overall will improve. How does the backup 4 spot look? I think right now it's Hart's position until we see otherwise. Does a Nathan Knight impress? And does he take Obi's 10 minutes a night? Maybe. We'll see what happens there. But I think Hart will be able to serve in that role until we figure out something else. You look at the record, they went 8-8 in the division last year. They went 2-2 against Brooklyn. I think they should be able to get, anything happens depending on how you play these teams, how the schedule looks. I think they should be able to get 3-1 at least against Brooklyn. They don't have KD, they don't have Kyrie anymore. We're clearly a better team than the Nets. We should be able to show that in the regular season, again, depending on when you get them in the schedule. They went 1-3 against Toronto. 1-3 against Toronto. Toronto's still a tough matchup, even though they don't have Van Fleet, because they have those wings, Siakam, Barnes, Anunoby. I believe that really gave the Knicks, it was a tough matchup for the Knicks. They got Pirtle. They're a little bit better in the front court. But 1-3 against Toronto. Hopefully you can get 2-2, maybe a little above 500 against them in your 4 matchups. And they went 2-2 against Philly. We'll see what happens with the Harden trade. Does he get traded? Does he sit out? What happens there? If he does get traded and they don't get equal or better value, are the Knicks a better team than Philly on paper? I would think so. So we'll see what happens there. They went 3-1 against Boston last year. And like you said, with no Smart, no Grant Williams, Boston's going to be questionable. How does Porzingis fit? How will they look defensively? How do they come together? Is there an opportunity there? But they still went 3-1 against Boston last year. So I think there's areas to improve. If Miami doesn't get Dame, forget about them. They lost Strus. They lost Vincent. I think Miami's looking at the bottom half of the East again this year, but not because they don't have it together, but because I don't think their roster is going to be as deep. You got another year of age on Butler, Lowry, and Love. We'll see what Jaime Jaquez does for them. Again, if they don't get Dame, we'll see what Jaime Jaquez does with them and Robinson, and I'm sure Nikola Jovic will get some playing time there. He'll squeeze into the rotation. We'll see how he looks there. But I'm not so sure about Miami going into the regular season. So you have question marks in Philly, question marks in Miami. Boston, we'll see. And the Nets, we should be clearly better than. We're better than the Hawks. We're better than the Bulls. Pacers will be improved. See what happens there. Should be able to get some wins against the Wizards. Sure. The bottom feeders of the East, Detroit. So I like our chances, man. I like our chances to get over 45 if we stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this past season, right? And you look at your top 4 teams in the East. It's Cavs were 51, Philly was 54, Boston was 57, Milwaukee was 58. Knicks were right there, man, 47. You could have even said, like, with a couple, like, between the Pacers game and the Pelicans game, they could have easily gotten to, like, 49, maybe 50, depending on how other games. So, and look, it was tough to begin last season, right? It was so up and down, but yet they were able to accumulate enough wins throughout that part of the season to really make it that much better for them. And I think when you're starting out and you already know you have that set plan for someone like Tom Thibodeau, who is very formulaic and how he likes to do things. And that's his whole thing too, right? He preaches that like knowing guys need to have like a rhythm on knowing when they need to come in and all that type of stuff. And he really keeps that down to the T. And I think it even goes to the method of his madness. So with all of that, I think knowing what he has to begin with to start off the season, I think he'll be what we could see along those lines, close to 50. I wouldn't be surprised if we got to 50 this year.
Yeah.
In all honesty.
Yeah.
Like just the way that the East is, it's so much parity, man. There's so much parity in the league, especially in the East right now. Like, obviously things could change, right? You could get Dame to Miami. That really tilts everything.
Changes everything.
Changes everything. You know, if James Harden decides to play and stick in Philly and really wants to play it, changes everything. 100%. But we're talking about ifs with those things, right?
Yeah.
As of right now, where the conference stand, based on the information that we have, I think you can talk about the Knicks being top 5, top 4 team in the East, just how everything's looking right now.
Yeah, I think you could. And, you know, people in chat saying you can't count Miami out. You can't count Miami out. In the postseason, sure. But in the regular season, you look at that roster, how it looks right now. Without Dame, they lost 2 of their top 3-point gunners in Vincent and Strus. Now you have younger players coming in trying to fill in here. Jimmy already has said in the past, he doesn't start turning up until after the All-Star break. They won 44 games last year. So if they don't get Dame, I think they could be around the same. I think they can be around the same. And then now you have Charlotte. They'll get LaMelo back healthy. They get Miles Bridges. Not to say that they're going to be moving, but, you know, is that a team where can you get 2 out of 3 from them? Or you know, are they able to challenge the Knicks a little bit here and there? Orlando, same way. Pacers, same way.
I think the thing about any NBA team, right, is that there are going to be teams that just, it doesn't make sense that they can beat. It's like last year when we talk about facing Toronto, right?
Yeah.
I thought we were better than Toronto. The games that we lost, I'm like, they were so close. They were so close where it's like, this is very frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
We're a better team. I get that physically matching up with them is difficult for the Knicks, but the Knicks weren't so far out where they were just overpowered by Toronto, right? You can go to a team like Boston, right? And how they lost to the Orlando Magic. And you just think, how can such a talented team that's number 1 in the East for a good portion of the season lose to a team that's rebuilding, that has a bunch of young guys out there? So there are things that just don't make sense in this league, just matchup wise. Like, it just happens to every team. So it's not saying that. What I'm saying is that with a team like Charlotte, sure, they could beat the Knicks, right? They could win the series, but that still wouldn't, in my mind, change where the Knicks stand positionally along the Eastern Conference.